Hello, and welcome to what is rapidly becoming a bit of a series on narcissistic personality disorder. There was a lot of interest in the last video that I put out, so I thought I would do a follow-up and focus in on one of the symptoms that probably is most associated with narcissistic personality disorder. However, it does occur with antisocial personality disorder as well, and that is gaslighting. So gaslighting is a term that shows up a lot in our popular culture. It kind of gets tossed around, here and there, and we kind of use it in our vernacular. So it's not quite as precise as it used to be when it was first coined as a psychological term. So as psychologists, we view gaslighting as a way that a person manipulates someone else into doubting their own perceptions, experiences, or even understandings of reality. It means that basically they make you start to question if your experience of the world around you is actually true, or if, in the words of several of the clients that I've worked with who have had gaslighting happen to them, if they're losing their mind. And so gaslighting actually, interestingly enough, comes from the name of a stage play that was around in 1938. And in the stage play, the character, the husband in the relationship, pretty much drives his wife, what back then would have been considered insane, because he gaslights her and convinces her that she needs, or that he's right and she's wrong about everything. And so that's where the terminology comes from. When we talk about gaslighting in general, often people who use this technique will do something called love bombing you at the beginning of a relationship. So it's going to feel amazing, like they're the most attentive person in the world, and they love you, and they give you gifts, and they make you really trust who they are. And it's a way of them kind of getting their foot in the door to start asserting some control. And once they've earned your love and your trust, then they start to show some of this gaslighting behavior. So they start to kind of pick at things and criticize. And often it's pretty small at first, and you may just kind of write it off as like, oh, well, that was an odd thing to say. And it's important to know that gaslighting can start showing up as soon as the first date. So it's not something that only happens to people in long-term relationships. Generally, if it's showing up right away, the person will be asking you for a lot of questions. They'll be pushing for intimacy very quickly, and there'll be lots of almost oddly timed gifts and declarations of being absolutely in love with you, and maybe you've only had one date with the person. So anytime the love comes on hard and fast, and almost at a almost illogical or unrealistic rate, then that's time to just kind of be on your guard a little bit to make sure that's not what's happening. So according to psychologists, there are 3 phases that a person goes through when they are the victim of gaslighting. So the first one is disbelief. And most of us, somebody starts telling us, oh, well, your perception of reality is wrong, we're going to kind of think, well, no, actually, you're wrong. So if, for example, a husband comes home really late at night and he smells like perfume that doesn't belong to the wife, for example, which is kind of an old-fashioned trope. But if the wife notices the smell and she says, you smell like someone else's perfume, and he says, no, I don't. In that moment, she's not going to say, oh, well, maybe he's right, maybe he doesn't. She'd kind of think, well, no, actually you do. I don't know why you're denying it. And so that phase will continue for a period of time until the person starts to wear the other person down. So the person who's being gaslit, you start to doubt your version of reality more and more and more, because this individual is constantly telling you you're wrong. So the next step is sliding into defense. So when a person enters the stage of gaslighting, then you start to question yourself more, and you start to wonder if maybe they're actually correct. And you may still start to or try to defend yourself a little bit. You might say, well, I was home on time last night. And they would say, no, you're not. You're an hour late. And you would say, well, no, but I think I was home on time last night. And they'd be insistent that, no, you were late. You were late. And eventually you would start to kind of, well, maybe I'll try and see your point of view. I could see how maybe you could mix up the time, or maybe it felt later to you. And so you kind of start to justify what they're saying and what they're doing. And then the last phase they refer to as depression, which basically means that eventually you start to believe these people. And so you start to think, oh, my reality or my perception of reality is absolutely wrong. And I now have to rely wholly on this other individual to define for me what is good, what is not good, what is correct, what is incorrect. And that's a very dangerous place to be, because you will have no self-confidence at all. Your self-concept is destroyed. Your trust in any decisions that you would ever make is totally destroyed. And so it traps the individual in this very controlling, isolating relationship, where if people even come in and tell you, what he's saying is wrong, like that's not actually the case, often the response is, well, I kind of wonder that sometimes, but I don't think that's true because he says that that's not the case. And it can lead to a lot of frustration, because the person from the outside can see what's happening, but the person on the inside of the relationship is so confused and so unable to trust their own thought process that they find themselves unable to believe anyone but the person who is gaslighting them. And so it's really important, if you notice any type of this behavior in a relationship, even if you're not quite sure, am I dealing with someone who has a narcissistic personality disorder? Am I dealing with somebody who, maybe just is a really poor communicator? If you find yourself constantly justifying their actions, or if you're constantly hearing them lie about reality, about what's actually going on, or denying things that for certain are true, that is a red flag. And that's time to start really reevaluating relationships. And in those moments, checking in with somebody who really loves you, who's outside the relationship, who's going to give you an honest answer. Because often, people who are even questioning the relationship, they're going to start to doubt whether actually what they're seeing is happening or not. So just to wrap it up, a couple of examples of a gaslighting type phrases would be something like, you always screw everything up. It's a good thing I'm here to help you. And so basically you're saying, well, I'm somebody with the power here and you can't do anything right without me. And it may be also just a blatant out and out lie. Like, you never came home last night. Well, yes, I did. Well, they didn't sleep in the bed, but they've got you so convinced that obviously you're missing something, or that you can't trust your own eyes, that you're going to doubt whether they did or not. And so those are a couple of examples. There's all sorts of examples all over the internet to have a look at, just to see. And so it's something to kind of keep an eye on, just in new relationships, or even to check in on in older relationships. And if you need to bring a trusted companion in to help you sort out exactly what you're seeing, or to ask them if what you're seeing is correct, then that is an absolutely positive way to go most of the time, because it just will help you have some clarity when you're doubting your own perception of the world. So hopefully that was helpful. We will see their reaction to this video as whether or not I'm going to continue with some more narcissistic personality type stuff, or if I'm going to move on to the next disorder in their series. Thank you.